Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. You know, when we conjure an image of small town life, it's often that picture-perfect scene, right? Quiet streets, neighbors, maybe a charming main street, just peaceful. An escape from the city hustle, a real haven of community. But what if that postcard image, well, what if it hides a different story? What if the things we romanticize also bring some, pretty significant challenges, often overlooked ones? Okay, so today we're diving into that sort of nuanced reality. Our mission is to take you beyond the facade, using insights from our source, the underbelly of small town living. We want to give you a shortcut, really, to being well-informed about the less talked about stuff, the real difficulties residents sometimes grapple with. Get ready for some insights that might reshape how you see small town living.
It's true, yeah. And what's fascinating here is how our perceptions can be so ingrained. Sometimes they really diverge from the actual lived experiences. I mean, sure, the sense of community, the slower pace, those are real benefits, absolutely. But our source material, it really highlights these crucial practical difficulties, the ones often missed in the usual story. It's about looking past that surface charm, understanding the day-to-day impacts.
Okay, so if the postcard view is charm, let's peel back that first layer. The everyday stuff. You might picture a quaint general store, maybe a local clinic. Seems fine. But our sources point to something bigger. A real scarcity of essential services.
Yeah, a widespread scarcity.
And this isn't just minor inconvenience, is it? It sounds like it hits fundamental things.
Exactly. The source is strikingly clear on this. Let's take healthcare. Small towns often have, well, critically few facilities. Our source mentions someone, Mrs. Chin, I think? Harmony Gulch. She has to drive 150 miles each way every month for specialized cancer treatment.
Wow, 150 miles.
Yeah. And think about that's not just the hassle, it's the fuel cost. Maybe lost wages for the day.
A whole day gone just for travel.
Right. And in an emergency, those distances become genuinely dangerous, life-threatening, potentially. Then there's education. Small-town schools, they might have that strong community feel, which is great. But often they lack advanced resources or, specialized programs, diverse extracurriculars you'd find in bigger schools.
So opportunities might be limited for kids.
It can limit them, yeah, impacting maybe academic growth or just exposure to different skills, different interests. And it goes beyond that to commercial amenities, too. The lack of large supermarkets, diverse entertainment, it means fewer choices.
Right, not just about fancy groceries, but basic options.
Exactly. It can make daily life feel quite restrictive, not being able to easily get what you need or find things to do locally.
That paints a pretty stark picture if you move there for simplicity. These constant logistical hurdles must add a huge layer of complexity, actually. Does this source say much about how people cope? Or is it just accepted?
Well, it suggests it's a mix. Communities get creative, sure. They rely on informal networks. But the underlying systemic problems, they tend to persist. It's not an easy fix. Which brings us neatly to another critical piece, livelihoods. If services are stretched thin, what about financial well-being? The jobs.
Absolutely, because small towns are often framed as that escape from the rat race, a place for maybe a simpler career or retirement. But what about actual career growth or ambition or just building a stable future? Our deep dive seems to shed a different light on that economic picture.
Yeah, the economic opportunity drain. Yeah, it might be one of the most sort of insidious challenges. Typically, small-town economies rely heavily on maybe agriculture, a few local businesses, or perhaps one specific industry.
Right, not very diverse.
Exactly. And while those are vital, it inherently means very limited career paths. That's a huge drawback, especially for, say, young professionals or anyone needing specialized roles. The jobs just aren't there, not enough to sustain diverse ambitions. And this often leads to a really tough choice for people. Many end up commuting long distances, hours each day sometimes.
Or moving away entirely.
Not moving away entirely, yeah, to pursue their careers. The source talks about this brain drain effect. The most ambitious young people consistently leave, and that disrupts families, community ties. Ironically, often the very things people liked about the town.
That is ironic.
And on top of that, the jobs that are available, they often pay less, lower wages. Now, the cost of living might be lower in some spots, but the source points out it often doesn't really make up for the lower income.
So financial stability is still a struggle.
It can be a constant struggle, yeah. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a big question. What's the long-term impact on a community when its young talent keeps leaving behind perhaps a shrinking, aging workforce with maybe fewer new ideas? This whole economic landscape, as the source notes, can actually end up discouraging ambition, discouraging innovation, leading to residents feeling, well, kind of trapped in maybe unfulfilling jobs with little room to grow.
Trapped is a really powerful word there,
Hmm.
and it resonates. But I wonder, does the source ever touch on the flip side? Like maybe small towns foster entrepreneurship, people
Yeah.
creating their own jobs, unique local businesses, maybe without big city competition. Is that a real counter-narrative, or is it just swamped by these bigger economic forces?
That's a really good question. And the source does acknowledge that entrepreneurial spirit exists, for sure. But it largely concludes that while you see individual successes, the bigger picture is tough. Things like lack of robust infrastructure, maybe limited access to capital, smaller customer bases. It often makes sustained, large-scale entrepreneurship pretty difficult.
More of a struggle than a solution.
More often a struggle, yes, than a widespread fix for the economy. The overall trend of limited options, lower wages, that remains the dominant theme in the source material.
Okay, so the spirit is there, but the ecosystem to really let it flourish might be missing. Forcing people into that tough choice between their roots and their professional lives, that's quite a constraint. All right, shifting gears a bit from economics. Let's talk about what many people think is the absolute heart of small-town appeal, that close-knit community. We all love that idea, right? Knowing your neighbors, that strong social fabric. But our deep dive suggests there's a fascinating twist to that, a flip side.
Indeed. Yeah, while being close-knit definitely fosters belonging, mutual support, that's undeniable, the source points out it can sometimes mean a serious lack of personal privacy.
The everybody knows everybody's businesses thing.
Exactly that. In small towns, people often know really intimate details about each other. Finances, family stuff, relationship dynamics. The source actually describes it as living in a fishbowl,
A fishbowl, okay?
where every decision, maybe every new purchase, every visitor, it's often community discussion fodder before you've even processed it yourself. And beyond that, this intense closeness, this environment, it can create real pressure to conform, conforming to established community norms, expectations.
Right, if you're different.
If you value independence or maybe have a lifestyle that's a bit unconventional, it can be incredibly challenging. You might feel judged, excluded, constantly under scrutiny for not quite fitting the mold. There's an anecdote in the source I remember about a young artist, moved back home, found himself constantly defending his non-traditional career to neighbors, feeling like he was always, quote, letting the town down.
Wow, that's intense pressure.
And it's not just privacy and conformity. Think about it. The smaller population just naturally means fewer social circles. So it can be harder to make new friends or find people who share niche interests or different viewpoints.
Especially for younger people, I imagine.
Particularly for young people, yes. This can lead to really profound feelings of isolation. Fewer chances for diverse social engagement or cultural exposure beyond what the local community offers.
So the very closeness that pulls people in can actually become the most stifling part. That's a powerful, kind of unexpected angle on the close-knit ideal.
Hmm.
Does the source balance this? Does it highlight the positives of that fabric too? Or is it mostly framed as a drawback when talking privacy and conformity?
Well, it definitely acknowledges the huge value of community support in a crisis. You know, when someone's sick or there's a fire, that's a key benefit.
Sure, people rally together.
Absolutely. But when it comes to just daily life, individual expression, the fishbowl effect, the pressure to conform, those are consistently presented as pretty significant challenges, especially if you feel you don't quite fit in. So it seems the benefits shine brightest in times of need, while the drawbacks are more of a constant low-level hum.
It really highlights the complexity, doesn't it? What does it mean when your community knows everything?
Mm.
For better and sometimes for worse. Okay, from the social complexities, let's look at some really essential modern infrastructure. Staying connected. In the 21st century, in our digital, mobile world, it's maybe easy to assume everyone has smooth access to transport reliable internet. But our sources paint a very different picture for some small towns, a significant connectivity gap.
This is crucial and, yeah, often overlooked. Many small towns simply lack efficient public transport, full stop. This forces residents to rely almost entirely on cars, personal vehicles.
Which, as we said, can be really expensive.
Incredibly costly. The source shares stories like seniors missing doctor's appointments because they can't drive anymore and there are no other options, or low-income families having to choose between fixing the car and buying groceries.
That's a fundamental barrier then, accessing work, school, healthcare.
It absolutely is. And then there's the digital side, the digital divide. Poor internet, spotty mobile coverage in many small towns.
Yeah.
It's not just annoying. It actively holds people back.
How so?
Well, imagine students trying to do online learning with internet that keeps dropping out,
Nightmare.
or a local farmer who can't get real-time market data that could, make or break their whole season. In a world where so much happens online now, job applications, education, banking, even just socializing, this digital isolation can leave residents feeling profoundly disconnected, cut off from broader opportunities.
Mhm.
Which really raises another important question. How can small towns genuinely thrive?
Yeah.
How can they keep people there? When residents are, in some ways, physically and digitally isolated from those wider networks and opportunities.
Yeah, it really makes you stop and think about how much we take for granted. Quick internet, easy transport. Now imagine that being severely limited,
Yeah.
impacting your ability to learn, to earn, to just connect. Does the source give any hint about solutions? Are communities trying to bridge this digital gap themselves? Maybe local initiatives, grants? Or is it just too big?
It does mention various local efforts, yeah. Community centers may be offering free Wi-Fi, some grassroots campaigns pushing for better infrastructure.
So people are trying.
People are definitely trying, but it largely points to this being a systemic issue, something needing bigger investment, policy changes. Because while local efforts are great, the sheer cost and technical challenge of bringing high-speed internet to remote areas, it often just outstrips what a small community can do on its own, leaving many still struggling with slow or unreliable connections.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap this deep dive. We've really peeled back the layers on that romanticized view of small-town living, haven't we? Uncovered some pretty significant challenges: limited access to essentials like healthcare, good education, a serious drain on economic opportunities, often forcing people out or making them settle. That social paradox, close-knit, yes, but also maybe lacking privacy, pressuring conformity. And then these modern hurdles: poor transport, that persistent digital divide. Our source really makes it clear that while, yes, small towns offer peace, community, these barriers really impact quality of life for a lot of residents.
Absolutely. This deep dive, I think, really underscores how important it is to appreciate the nuances of any living situation, really, whether it's urban or rural. It pushes us to look beyond just the surface image, acknowledge the real, tangible difficulties that often come alongside the benefits, hopefully fostering a bit more empathy and maybe leading to more informed choices about where and how we all choose to live.
Well said. And that leads us perfectly into our final thought for you, our listener. Given all these complex challenges we've explored today, from infrastructure gaps to social pressures, economic limits, if you had the task, if you were trying to make small towns more appealing, more sustainable places to live, where would you start? Would your first move be, say, aggressive job creation? Or perhaps fostering different kinds of social opportunities, balancing community with freedom? Or maybe tackling that connectivity issue head on? Infrastructure. What's your number one priority in reimagining the small town? Something to chew on until our next deep dive.